What's up, Star Wars fans? Welcome back to the TK423 podcast, where today we are going to continue our Star Wars film rankings with rank number 3. And for a little bit of a recap, I'll go ahead and put the graphic back up. At number 11, we had Rise of Skywalker. At number 10, we had The Last Jedi. Tied for 8, we had Solo: A Star Wars Story and Attack of the Clones. At number 7, we had The Force Awakens. At number 6, we had The Phantom Menace. And at number 5, we had A New Hope. And number 4 was Rogue One. And now we're going to get in to rank number 3. Let's do this.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
So, rank number 3, you're starting to travel into that territory of you're either going to get a lot of criticism for going with the mainstream, like the mainstream top 3 Star Wars films of all time, or you're going to get criticism for going outside of the bounds of mainstream and just developing an opinion solely based on your own perspective. But this number 3 is a solid 3, right? I feel like the 2 films ahead of it did more, right? But not to say that this film was bad in any means. It is. There's only really 2 big things I can complain about it, but that film is Return of the Jedi. And Return of the Jedi, I've said this dozens of times already, that Return of the Jedi has probably the most beautiful bow-tying ending of any story in cinema, right? Any story you can think of, this one was a perfect ending to the Skywalker saga, at least at the time, right? Until they continued it with The Force Awakens. Because in this whole film, you have Luke Skywalker who's teetering between the dark side and the light side. He's conflicted because he knows his father is still in there, in Darth Vader, right? He knows there's still good in him. And he's struggling to fight that inner conflict with his father. And I think the whole father-son narrative of this entire film was phenomenal, because you saw a different side to Darth Vader that you haven't seen. And especially if you're new to watching Star Wars nowadays and you go back and you watch everything starting with The Phantom Menace all the way up, right? Even including shows, that include Darth Vader in it. And you'll see Darth Vader is a ruthless, sinister, chaotic, just obliteration of a person, right, that dominates anything in his path. He's cold-blooded. And then in Return of the Jedi, you see him start to get a soft spot for Luke. And obviously because it's his son, right? And yes, there's part of him trying to turn him to the dark side because, he would become the ultimate Sith master. But there's another side that Darth Vader doesn't want Luke to turn. He knows that the Emperor is as bad as everyone else thinks, right? And Darth Vader understood at the end that I'm no longer going to be anybody's slave. I'm going to be the person that I was destined to be, hence overthrowing the Emperor, right? So when you get a movie like this that has such a perfect ending, such a perfect build-up to that ending, and you're going to have some problems, right? It's not anything is going to be perfect. So the worst problem with this movie, these are 2 reasons why it's not number 1. If these 2 were changed, it would be number 1. First one, Boba Fett's death, right? We all know that he now survives, right? Given the Book of Boba Fett show. But the way that this happens in the film with, basically Han Solo accidentally hitting Boba Fett in the back to cause his jetpack to malfunction and to fall into the Sarlacc pit. Kind of goofy. Especially when you're talking about a ruthless bounty hunter like Boba Fett. And so they kind of did him dirty a little bit. And if they would have kept him as a villain the entire movie, it would have added another dynamic, right? It could have distracted people from the whole father-son narrative that the movie was pushing, right? That it was focused on Luke and Vader and their conflict, right? But it could have made the Battle of Endor more spicy. It could have made, it could have made getting Han back a lot harder than it was. Maybe Boba Fett could have killed Lando. Boba Fett could have killed Han. Boba Fett could have, done more damage than what he did because he didn't do anything. He did absolutely nothing for the show or for the movie, other than basically an appearance, right? So seeing that, especially after seeing him in The Empire Strikes Back, now even though in Empire Strikes Back you really didn't see Boba Fett, fight other than when Luke first got to Bespin, right? When he shoots him, he knows Luke's there and he comes back around, pans around the corner and shoots at Luke. But other than that, the Boba Fett action is down to 0, or at least a 2. And you don't expect that out of the world or the galaxy's most infamous bounty hunter, right? So at the end of the day, the way Boba Fett was placed in this movie, the way he was used, the way, he was utilized in Empire Strikes Back, it all could have been a little bit better, right? So now that moves on to my next problem with this movie. And honestly, that's it for problems with this. And it's a big one, though. It's a big one that could have changed the course of this film entirely. And that is, Ewoks shouldn't have been there. It should have been Wookiees fighting on the Battle of Endor. Because when you hear the Emperor say, I sent a legion of my best troops down there, your friends are in a trap, and they stand no chance. Well, Mr. Palpatine, your best legion of troops got beat out by a bunch of furry little babies with rocks and sticks. Granted, they had the little sandwich smasher log action, one of those walkers. But other than that, it was very laughable. It was very just unbelievable. Like you can't imagine a best legion of troops getting knocked out by little teddy bears with rocks and sticks, and you literally see. It's kind of like how the choreography in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show with them killing the stormtroopers, like just hitting them on the head with your hand, and they fall apart. Same thing happened in Return of the Jedi. A little bit with you get hit in the head by a rock, and you're wearing a helmet. I mean, you're wearing a helmet, and you get hit in the head with a little rock, and you just that's just no. Now getting hit up by the head by a Wookiee. Ask Captain Phasma how that feels, right? He got tackled by a Wookiee. Ask Han Solo in Solo Star Wars Story what it's like to fight with a Wookiee. Ask all the droids from Revenge of the Sith and the Battle of Kashyyyk what it's like to fight Wookiees. And that's the thing. That's the one I always like to draw back and compare is if you look at the Battle of Endor and you look at the Battle of Kashyyyk, right? You obviously see more of the Battle of Endor. But if you were to envision the Battle of Endor with Wookiees, you would go off of the Battle of Kashyyyk, which was awesome because they make explosives, right? That's one of their specialties. They make explosives. And so, seeing the Wookiees jump onto the droid, gunner ships and slap on a detonator and jump off and it blows up. Like, that's cool, man. Like, that I could see taking down the Empire's best legion of troops. I could see that. But with having little Ewoks do the job, no. And, the fact that everyone knows Luke could have just obliterated all those Ewoks instead of getting captured. Obviously, he's a Jedi, so, you can't really go doing that. But, anyone who's played Star Wars Battlefront 2 knows that it makes more sense. Or, I mean, really anyone who knows Star Wars, who loves Star Wars, says it makes more sense to have the Wookiees be fighting against the Empire and helping the Rebel Alliance on the battle on Endor than the Ewoks. And in my opinion, that ruined the rating of this film. Not only with me, but a lot of other people. Okay? But like I said before, if the Wookiees would have been in on the Battle of Endor, this film would be number one. It would hop both, the next two films. It would hop it. So, it's one of those things, though, that I enjoy Return of the Jedi so much. So much. Recently I got to go see it in the theaters for the first time, and I think it was late April, and that was an experience like none other. Seeing, what people saw in 1983, but just on a, better screen, better quality and stuff, but honestly, I mean, it would be nice to go in a time machine and go and see it, when it premiered. I mean, that's with all the original trilogy, right? We all wish we could do that if you haven't done it. But seeing it in theaters was special, and that's really what made it launch up to number 3 personally, because experiencing that movie in a theater setting was a game changer. And seeing that final fight between Vader and Luke and all the implications behind it, and then seeing Darth Vader overthrow the Emperor and seeing him redeem himself, and then seeing Hayden Christensen at the end, and that was really cool, and I loved it. Like I said, perfect bow tie ending to the Skywalker saga. And not to mention that, yes, it is one of my, favorite films, like, of any movies. Obviously, because you see the 2 versions of Return of the Jedi posters right up here. And the funny story behind those is my father, who introduced me to Star Wars, got those posters back in '83 when the film came out. And he kept them preserved and rolled them up, and he didn't fold them, so there's no crease marks. And he gave them to me one Christmas, and then we got them framed, and they've been some of my most prized possessions. And that reminds me, like I said, we do look at collectibles too. So, But a little Return of the Jedi cool thing here. See if I can get the camera to... Okay. So... the significance behind this figure is my father had sold this to one of his best friends. And it still has the Toys R Us price sticker. And my nanny had got this for my father, back when the film came out, from Toys R Us. And he had to sell it to one of, his best friend Wayne. And then, years passed, and he kept trying to buy it back from him, and he's like, no, one day. And then one Christmas, Wayne decides to give it back to him, give it back to my dad, and then my dad, gave it to me. And another significance behind this is if you can look closely, I don't know but his lightsaber is blue. All the original marketing for this film, Luke's lightsaber was blue. And seeing that toy, and opening that, there's never been a better feeling in opening a present than that, hands down. And that's, like I said, that and the 2 posters, little pieces of Return of the Jedi that I just can't get enough of looking at. I could look at it all day. They're beautiful pieces, and forever grateful for that. And so, but to hit on what I just said a little bit, I kind of forgot about that earlier, is that, yeah, Return of the Jedi was marketed with Luke having a blue lightsaber. And the only reason why they didn't have a blue lightsaber, in the final cut was because in the Skybarge scene, on the Jabba Skybarge scene, Luke's lightsaber was blue and it was kind of blending in with the sky way too much. So they decided to change it to green. So like a lot of the original marketing had him as a blue lightsaber, and then the later on marketing had a green lightsaber. So I think that's pretty dang cool. But Return of the Jedi at number 3, and what is going to be number 2 and number 1? Well, I can tell you this. It's going to come down to obviously the last 2 films on this list, which is Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back. So tune in next time to see what will be number 2 and what will be number 1. Leave your comments down below. I want to know what you have to say. I love hearing your opinions. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more Star Wars content like this. And as always, may the Force be with you.